Welcome to our podcast. I'm Dad's ex.
And I'm the next.
And today we thought it would be fun to talk about our differences in parenting styles and how we were raised and how that determined.
How that plays a part in how we parent now.
Yeah. We were talking about it a little bit, but we don't really have a whole lot of differences in parenting. There's a couple things here or there, but they're not
major.
They're not major. I think the biggest difference that I can think of is that we do dessert at our house and you guys don't.
Not on school nights.
Yeah, and that's really it. And even I've changed that. I've been doing a new thing with Carly where it's kind of like twofold, where she has a lot of self-confidence issues. And so what I've been doing is if she wants dessert, she has to tell me all of the good things that she's done throughout the day to see if she's like earned it, which I don't use that verbiage because that's kind of problematic. But it helps her realize all of the positive things about her. And I'll even push her because sometimes she'll be like, well, I didn't really do anything today. The other night, for example, it was, well, you shared with your brother, or you let your brother come into your room and play with your toys, or you helped us clean up, or she didn't throw attitude. She's pre-teenager right now, so the attitude
is real.
It's so
doesn't help that she has us as influences in her life.
Yeah, it's real bad because I'm a very sarcastic parent. Shelby's a very sarcastic parent.
I'm probably more sarcastic, very bluntly sarcastic to our kids, where she knows how to bite her tongue a little bit more than I do. Whereas I will literally be like, well, you fucked up. That sucks.
Yeah, and that's kind of biting us in the ass a little bit now because Carly will throw some fucking attitude, and I'll have to be like, excuse me, Miss Ma'am, do you wanna try that again?
Jesse will too, where it's like just last week he was doing something and he was talking about some bruise that he had, and I was like, well, don't do dumb things. And then I have like this massive bruise on my arm. It's healed up now. It's like just that gross yellowish like outline now.
Yeah.
But it was like a massive bruise. And he goes, how'd you get that? And I was like, I don't know. And he's like, well, maybe don't do dumb things. Okay. Touché. Yeah. Can't be mad at that.
I know. Carly, the other day I was picking her up from school and we were talking about her state report, and she didn't get to do like a timeline piece or whatever because I picked her up early to take her to the dentist. And very non-judgmental and not like, I wasn't accusing her of anything. It was just, well, why didn't you get it? And there's this thing called asking for it and getting it. It's like, who the hell are you talking to? Because it ain't me. I was floored. But it's one of those things where she says that and I'm like, oh, that's me. That's me coming out 100%. Yeah. So I've been trying that with, and so there are some dates where she doesn't get dessert solely because she now has autonomy over it and she has to decide if she's done good things throughout the day to deserve it.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
And it's not that like I'm anti-dessert. And honestly, it's more of my whole thing of no dessert on weeknights was mostly because Carly and Jesse shared a bedroom. And if they had dessert, especially Carly, like doesn't do the best on a lot of sugar.
ADHD.
And she has an earlier bedtime, so it's by the time they'd get home from school, we'd have dinner, homework, like all the things. It's like by the time we have dessert, she's then having to jump into the shower, get ready for bed, and go to bed. And the sugar would be kicking in for her. Then by the time because Jesse has a later bedtime, by the time he goes to bed, they're just not going to bed because
they're chatting
to each other and like getting up and playing. And so it's constantly us having to get up and yell at them to go to bed. That was like my whole thing with no dessert, because like I'm one of the most dessert loving people. Sweets are my fucking favorite. But it was just so hard to get them to go to bed if we gave them any kind of
Yeah.
sugar. So like on non-school nights, or if we don't have Carly, I'm a little bit more lenient where Jesse will be like, "Oh, can I have like this? I ate all of my dinner. Can I have this piece of Halloween candy?" And
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, "Yeah," but we don't do like full on like big desserts during
Oh,
the week.
yeah.
It's or right now our landlord gave Jesse like a bag of sour gummy worms
Oh.
recently. And so he'll ask for like a few sour gummy worms, and but like on weekends we might do a little bit more, especially if we go to my in-laws house because they
Oh,
love dessert. But
yeah.
so I'm not like anti-dessert. I have reasons behind
Yeah,
why we didn't
no,
do dessert.
it makes sense. It makes sense because we don't have that problem because we don't have another child Carly's age that she
Shares a room with.
shares a room with.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. And it's like we don't do big ass desserts really either. It is like a piece of Halloween candy or stuff. The reason why we do dessert versus not is stems from my childhood. My mom was very anti sugar to the point where it became like unhealthy, and I developed a very unhealthy relationship with food where I was hoarding and hiding and binging, and it led to some really unhealthy habits to where so once I was able to actually like live on my own, it was a huge problem where I was anything and everything that had sugar in it, I was eating it at an unhealthy level. And both me and my brother struggled with this. My brother actually, like the Boy Scouts, how they sell the candy bars?
Mm-hmm.
Did I ever tell you this story with my brother? Oh my God. You should ask Nick about it because it was a whole thing. So my brother was in Boy Scouts and he had to sell candy bars. And we had like boxes of them because, you'd sell them for $1 a piece. And they went missing.
Oh no,
Like
he ate all of them.
they slowly went missing. Oh yeah, he ate all of them. And not only that,
They're not even that good of chocolate bars.
they're really not. Here's the kicker though, is that because we weren't allowed to have sweets, my brother wanted to dispose of the evidence. And you can't just put it in the trash can because then your parents would know. One day, one of the cats pukes on the couch cushion. So my mom needs to pick up the couch cushion to clean it. And lo and behold, there are hundreds, and I'm not shitting you, hundreds of chocolate bar wrappers
Oh no.
underneath the couch cushions and like beneath, and like, oh, it was so bad. So bad. And that was kind of where it dawned on me that I was like, oh, me and my brother both have a very unhealthy relationship with sweets. And so for me, mine is trying to combat that, where it's like, okay, I'm going to let Carly have and anything and everything in moderation so that she doesn't grow up to have an unhealthy relationship with food. I don't want her to label food as good or bad. It's all food and it's all good in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's mine stems from, where it's there will be times where I'm like, yeah, kid, fuck no, you're not getting any dessert. You're already bouncing off the goddamn walls.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be a thing where she feels like she has to hide candy or anything. Like I want her to be able to just ask and not have to like stash it like
Yeah.
me and my brother did. It's a wonder that my mom didn't get ants. It's an absolute wonder.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Hundreds of candy bar wrappers.
That's wild.
It's so I'm
You've
like
never told me that story.
it's so bad.
Yeah, that really is our biggest difference. I mean, we're very similar. I think it's also because we talk through
Mm-hmm.
everything. Like we've talked about before, the key to our co parenting relationship has very much been communication.
Oh yeah.
And so we talk about everything. I'll even talk to her about things that is for Jesse or my other kids that has nothing to do with Carly, because we're just one big blended family now. Or she'll talk to me about things with Kaden. Like we just
Mm-hmm.
so we really don't have that big of differences. I'd say that like something I've learned a lot from Jess's parenting, specifically with our older kids, is patience.
Oh, it requires a
It
lot
does.
of
And
that.
like I'm the type of person, and I have to check myself sometimes because I have a lot of patience for little kids, babies, toddlers. younger kids I have a lot of patience for. But once they reach a certain age where I know they understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, I know they understand certain rules, I lose a lot of patience
Yeah.
for when they break the rule or when they don't listen, because to me, when I was younger, that was a form of disrespect. And so that's
Yeah.
how I've always viewed it, because of how my parents were, that if I did something that I wasn't supposed to do, it was disrespectful to my parents.
Mm.
So that's how I viewed it a lot, where, if I told Carly and Jesse, like, hey, this is a rule, you guys need not do this, and then they go and break that rule, I'm seeing it as, well, you just disrespected me
Yeah.
because I very clearly told you not to do this and you did it anyways. So that means you don't respect me as a parent. And I would instantly get mad and I'd lose my patience. And a lot of that is because of my mental health. I don't have the best regulation with my emotions. I'm still learning how to regulate my emotions when it comes to other people being involved, because I can be impatient or irritated really easily.
Yeah.
And so I would instantly jump to like being upset with them and they're in trouble. Whereas something that I've watched Jess do a lot is that I am a lot better about now is having more patience and reminding of the rule, like, hey, explain to me why you did this when I very clearly told you not to do this, and like having a conversation about it and laying out, okay, well, if this happens again, this is going to be your consequence. So instead of instantly getting upset and mad now, I try to like take a deep breath. And there are times where I've gotten to a point with my son that I very openly will tell him now, my mental health's not doing okay. Mommy needs some space. I can't have this conversation with you right now because it's not going to go good if I have this conversation right now. We need to wait for mom to calm down a little bit. And I've been a lot more open with him about that, which I'm very thankful for, because my biggest fear is not having a relationship with, because of how my relationship or non-existent relationship is with my mom. My biggest fear is not having a relationship with my kids when they are older. So I'm trying to prevent that from happening by having more patience, communicating
Mm-hmm.
better with my kids. Or I will just take a minute and tell him, hey, I'm going to come talk to you in 5 minutes. I just need a little break from this for a moment to calm down and relax. And I'll just go and like breathe for a little bit and calm down. And then I will go to him. So it's something that I've had to learn. It doesn't need to be dealt with right then and there. I have to, like, if I'm feeling myself feel that instant irritation and anger,
Mm-hmm.
I have to remove myself, take some time, which, oh, I never started doing that until I watched Jess parent more, just because of how, like, that's how it was when I grew up, and I
Yeah.
just never really thought about it.
And that's a move right out of the Raising Good Humans playbook. And so I'm reading this book right now based on a recommendation from my therapist, and it's how to reduce your reactivity when it comes to parenting your children. And one of the big common themes throughout the book is recognizing when you can't be present, and doing exactly that, where it's, I am reacting right now, and I'm not in a space where I can have this conversation in a way that's going to be productive. So I'm going to take 5 minutes to take a deep breath, do some sort of mindfulness activity to bring myself back to earth, and then approach the conversation. And it works wonders. And especially for Carly with her ADHD, a lot of her problems, behavioral problems, I should say, comes from her lack of impulse control. And so half the time when she's doing something she's not supposed to be doing, it's because her impulse is going at full speed and she's just doing it without taking the time to actually think through her actions. And that has required a lot of patience.
Yeah.
A lot of patience
And
to
I'm
get
not
through.
perfect. I still have times where I like, react instantly
Mm-hmm.
and not,
Oh, yeah.
because I'm just like so in the moment that I don't think about it, and I will react instantly and I'll yell, and but then I like instantly regret it. I instantly feel the mom guilt, but I'm not ready in that moment to talk
Mm-hmm.
about it or acknowledge it. And so I'll still wait a little bit until I've calmed down, because I also have a 10-year-old who's had me as an influence. He's in that preteen,
Oh yeah.
attitude. And so if I do it in the moment and he says something like back to me that's either sarcastic or like rude, like in my head rude or whatever, I will instantly react again. And so I know that I don't want to be stuck in this cycle. So
Right.
I'll always go back and acknowledge later, like, hey, I'm sorry that I got impatient with you. I'm sorry that I yelled at you. Here's what I was feeling in those moments. And what can we do next time so that we don't reach this situation again? How could you talk to me differently? How
Mm-hmm.
could, what things do I need to say differently that's going to make you understand better where I was coming from when I told you to do this or told you not to do that, whatever it is? It has helped a lot.
And I think that's something that our generation is a lot better at doing, is even in those moments, because nobody's perfect parent. Like,
Yeah.
we're all going to have those moments where we react. I think we both have really bad sensory anxiety, and so it gets to a point where
Mm-hmm.
you're touched out, there's too many noises, there's just a lot going on. I'll snap. My window of tolerance is gone in that
Mm-hmm.
moment. But the big thing is being able to go back and apologize for your
Yeah.
behavior, and showing that it's okay to apologize. I never got that as a kid from either of my parents.
Mm.
I should say this, I was with my dad until I was about like 5 or 6, and then he's out of the picture, and then my mom, and then there's like a stepdad in there too. Like, it's a very chaotic childhood. But all three of those parenting relationships, I never once got an apology for unacceptable behavior. That's really harsh to say, but it's at the end of the day, like, there are parenting moments that are unacceptable that you need to apologize for. And they're going to happen, but being able to go to your kids and apologize after the fact. I mean, how are your kids supposed to know how to apologize to others if no one shows them how to do it?
Yeah.
That's my biggest thing, is like, I'll snap at Carly. I'll lose my patience with them, and even with my 3-year-old, but I'll come back around and be like, hey, I lost my cool, and I'll apologize, and then talk through the conversation. And Carly has become a lot better at being able to, because you remember there was a time where Carly would break down in tears if she had to apologize to somebody.
Oh my gosh.
It was rough, because to her, apologizing was admitting guilt, and that meant that you were going to get in trouble. Because of this association, she refused to apologize to anybody.
Oh yeah.
And
And it
so,
would be like if it was something that like she needed, it was a full screaming
oh yeah,
meltdown.
it
It
was,
was awful.
yeah, it was hard. And so that was something that I changed in my parenting, was I had never apologized to her when she was younger, and so she wouldn't really know how to do it effectively, and she wouldn't understand that apologizing, if you're in trouble, you're already in trouble. Apologizing or not doesn't change
Yeah.
that, but it's still a good thing to do, to apologize for your behavior. So that's helped a lot, and now she's way better at it.
Yeah, I mean, you can still tell it's not something she likes to do and that
Mm-mm.
she's uncomfortable and that she
Yeah.
doesn't want to do it, but it's not a screaming. She might start to tear up of not because she doesn't want to do it, but
Yeah.
she's not having these screaming meltdowns about it anymore, which is real nice because those meltdowns are rough.
They were rough. They were real rough.
We really don't have a lot of differences when it comes
Mm-mm.
to our parenting. I think we have different perspectives because of how we were brought up. Obviously, plays a huge role in how
Oh
we
yeah.
parent, but Jess isn't a step parent, so she doesn't
Mm-mm.
have the perspective of a stepmom. She's had a step parent growing up, so she, I think, can kind of put herself in Carly's shoes when it comes to Carly having two step parents. But it's a lot different being a
Yeah,
step
I
parent.
can't even imagine, because the big thing for me in why I parent Carly the way that I do when it comes to step parents is because I did have a stepfather for throughout my teenage years, which teenage years are already pretty rough. It was just the way that relationship worked. It was very different parenting styles. My mom would parent me one way, and my stepfather would parent me a different way. And he wasn't allowed to do certain things because he wasn't my real father. And because of that, there was a lot of blatant disrespect. I did not hold him in the same regard as my mom. There would definitely be conversations where it was like, "Hey, you're not my real parent. Fuck off." It was bad. But because of that, like I could get away with so much more with him. And so he kind of became the favorite parent because he didn't have to uphold the same rules and things because he wasn't allowed to parent the same way that my mom was. And because of that, that has really laid down the foundation for why whenever Shelby's telling Carly to do something, or even now, William, he's allowed to discipline Carly. He knows the rules that Carly's supposed to follow, like, his house too. And so I will always back both of them up because I want them to have the same respect because they are Carly's parents. And so I never want Carly to feel like she can disrespect either of them or pull a fast one over either of them because they're not the real parents. And it's like, no, they're living in our house and we all have the same rules. Yeah. It doesn't make sense why you can get away with something with one parent versus another. That's a lot of the reason why I make sure to back you guys up on everything.
And like we've said before, it's like if it is something that Jess doesn't agree with, she'll talk to us about that behind the scenes, not in front of Carly. She'll back us up in the moment. Because of that, Carly doesn't see step parents, and we don't use the term step parents.
We really don't.
We use bonus parents because we are a bonus in her life, but she doesn't see that. There's no line there. It's just she'll even tell people like, well, that's my mom and that's my other mom, or like to her she just has 4 parents.
She has moms and dads. Like she doesn't refer to them as stepmom or anything like that.
Like we said, she made people, when we were getting our nails done for Jess's wedding, made everybody think that we were the ones getting married because she was like, that's my mom and that's my other mom.
Oh yeah.
She sees us all the same, which is really nice.
Yeah, it helps a lot. It's interesting the perspective that we have from our childhoods. My childhood has granted me the need to go to therapy excessively.
I should be in therapy, but
I'm
just out here
raw dog in life. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I said, my dad wasn't in the picture for very long. He dipped out and he has a lot of problems of his own that are of a legal nature that I cannot disclose at this time.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. But yeah, so my mom was a single mom in Portland, Oregon, if that explains a lot. She tried her best and she did what she could to raise 2 kids on a single income in probably one of the most expensive areas in the country. But it left a lot lacking in terms of discipline and communication and affection. There were a lot of times where I had to grow up really fast because of that, and I was taking care of my brother in a lot of ways. Caused a lot of it's that same perspective of I don't want to be that kind of parent, and so that's why I'm trying really hard to do, I don't know, people call it like gentle parenting is like the movement, but
gentle parenting requires gentle children. We do not have gentle children.
We do not have gentle children. But it's interesting because to me it's like gentle parenting, all that is to me is communication. It boils down to recognizing and realizing that your kids are human beings too. Like they have personalities, they have their own thoughts and ideas, and you have to treat them with respect and talk to them like they are humans. And so I don't really know if I agree with the term gentle parenting.
I don't think we gentle parent.
I mean, we don't spank our kids. Like we
lose our cool.
Yeah. But I feel like any parent who gentle parents, like there's no way that you're not losing your cool.
I don't know. There are some weirdos out there. I don't consider us as gentle parenters.
I don't think so. But we're definitely breaking.
I just think that we want to make sure our kids know
Yeah.
you're not going, just because they're kids doesn't mean that their feelings don't matter. Doesn't
Right.
mean that their voices can't be heard. I don't want them to get walked over, like walked all over
Mhm.
in school or whatever, just because they think, well, I'm just a kid. And
Right.
my son is dealing with a situation right now where, in my opinion, he does have a teacher who's thinks that she can talk to him and do whatever she wants. It's her first year teaching, and he was really excited to have her because she was a student teacher last year. It has not been a good experience. I've stuck up for him many times.
She definitely doesn't treat the kids with any iota of respect.
No, and I've had to tell her, like, hey, just because, and I've told her on multiple occasions, just because they're kids doesn't mean that you can't listen to them. The most recent situation was, it was the end of the day, but he had math olympiad that day after school, and so, but he was still supposed to line up with the class and like go out. They all go outside, and then he was going to come back inside. One of his friends was upset, and he was trying to be there for his friend, and she was getting after him like, you need to line up. She had written him up because he didn't listen, and of course doesn't like tell me, just tells me that he was disrespectful in his
Mhm.
tone, sassy, which, yeah, he can be sassy. He comes home and I'm like, hey, why don't you explain the situation? And he was like, well, I was trying to tell her, but she wouldn't listen to me. She kept cutting me off. And then she just
Mhm.
walked away from me. So then I brought it up to her and I was like, hey, I'm not saying Jesse's attitude was okay, but from his point of view, he was trying to explain to you why he was doing what he was doing, and he was trying to communicate with you about it, and you kept interrupting him, and then you walked away from him. Just a reminder, I've said this before, just because they're kids doesn't mean that they don't deserve respect. And just like anybody would, you or myself or any adult, we're going to get frustrated if our voices aren't heard and if we're constantly being interrupted and then walked away from before we can explain what we're trying to explain.
Yeah.
So he was frustrated because you weren't listening to him. And I just think that to avoid this conflict in the future, it would be best if you would just listen, hear him out, listen to him. I'm not saying he was in the right. And you can tell him that he can think that way, but that's not going to be the way that it is. And you can explain that to him. He's not understanding why he was in trouble. So I think that you need, in the future, to avoid all this from happening, hear him out, and then
Mhm.
explain to him in a respectable way the reasons behind he's in trouble because he didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And
Respect is earned, not deserved.
right, and her response to me
Was so
was, I had already told him multiple times in this situation his opinion did not matter. It does matter though. Like, his
yeah.
opinion might not be the right one, and you can explain to him why it's not right and why he needed to do X, Y, and Z compared to the ABC that he did. But he still deserves to have his voice heard.
Yeah.
And you just told me, by you telling me that his opinion didn't matter, makes me know that everything he's saying is true
Yeah.
as far as you not listening to him. And so I had told her, I had like said something, and every time I don't want to say criticize, but like tell her that like kids deserve respect and she cannot talk to them this way, she will not acknowledge it, and she'll
Yeah.
just
Blow it off.
yeah, she'll blow it off.
We're
But
out
it's like,
here just trying to break generational trauma, and she's
right,
like,
and she's like,
whatever.
she's young. I get it. It's your first year teaching, and like, you want to have your authoritiveness. I don't know, but like,
It's definitely ego. It's
it's
big
definitely like
ego.
on a high horse type thing. But my whole point to this was that kids deserve respect, and how are they going to learn?
Mhm.
You know, if we're not teaching them. Like, we
Yeah.
have to teach them that respect is a two-way street. I can't
Mhm.
just demand that you respect me, because that's how, exactly how you're not going to respect me. I have to show you that I respect you too.
Yeah. And
Um
it bothers me because that's a big thing that a lot of teachers run off of, though, is they are the authority and you need to give them respect and that they don't deserve to have conversations. And so when we treat them with respect at home and we have conversations and dialogue and allow us to have back and forth conversation, everywhere else it's seen as a sign of disrespect because you're supposed to just
shut the kid down.
Yeah, shut up and take it. And we need to kind of pivot society where it's, why do you need to operate on a function of fear? Like, why do you need your kids to fear you? Because that's all you're doing. Like, I guarantee you, Jesse has no fucking respect for that teacher, but he'll be compliant because he's afraid of getting in trouble.
I don't even know that he's afraid of getting in trouble. I think the important thing in this situation is Jesse knows that I have his back, and he knows that I do not agree with how his teacher treats him and some of the other kids in class. He also knows that my expectation of him is to take the high road, and that he still needs to be respectful to that teacher. He only has a few months left with her, and then he's going to middle school.
Gross.
I'll cry about that later. But it's like he only has a few months left with her. He just has to get through the rest of the year. And he knows that my expectations of him are, you're still going to show her respect.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do run into this situation, I want him to be able to not get walked all over by kids or teachers. And if a teacher's walking all over him, I want him to try to make his voice heard in a respectful way, which he knows the difference between being respectful and not being respectful. He also knows that if he's not getting that, he can come home and talk to me about it. And he knows that I'm not the mom that's going to sit back and be like, well, that sucks, nothing I can do about it. I'm very much the mom that I'm going to go to that school and I'm going to talk to the principal. I'm going to talk to the dean of students. I've done it multiple times. I've called them multiple times. It took one time a Facebook post in a public group to get recognition from the school about certain things, but it's like, I am not the mom that's going to sit back and do anything. You're fucking with the wrong mom if you think that you can treat my kid like this.
They know that we will fight their battles for them because they don't need to. They need to focus on their education.
It's like there have been a couple of times where I have requested meetings with the school, and Jesse is included in those, and I make sure that he's able to say what he needs to say and what he's feeling, because I can't speak his feelings for him. I can speak what he's told me his feelings are, but I cannot speak his true feelings and his thoughts and opinions for him. Not only that, but he has to learn how to do it himself. So I'm not going to fully fight his battle for him. I will help him fight his battle, but I also am not going to have him be an adult calling me because he's upset at his boss and wants me to fight that battle for him. Like,
could you imagine?
No. So he has to learn how to fight his own battles, but I will 100% back him up. And if he is in the wrong, I will have a conversation with him about how he was in the wrong.
Yeah. You like got real passionate there.
I know.
And then just like petered off.
It's just like something that's been so frustrating to deal with this year, but at the same time, it's been a good learning experience for him.
Yeah, but he'll still take something away from it.
Yeah. But all of that to say, again, you're dealing with like ADHD people that will go off on tangents. So sorry, but it happens. All that to say is we are trying to show our kids.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't want them to get walked all over, so we can't walk all over them.
Mm-mm.
And I'm glad that we're like breaking that cycle.
My therapist has this really cool, I wouldn't even say it's a theory. She told me about this during one of our last sessions, and it was like, holy shit, you're right. Where the way that a lot of parents, because there is no parenting man, nobody handed me a fucking book when I gave birth to Carly and was like, here's the rules, this is what you need to do. We are parenting from what we learned from our parents, who learned from their parents, who learned from their parents. And so when we're breaking these traumas that we've developed from our own parenting, we're not just breaking this, like, we're breaking a complete cycle from hundreds of years where it's just been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And that's why it's so fucking hard to do, because it's not just what your parents taught you, it's your parents and your grandparents and like all of your ancestors. It's so ingrained in your DNA because of how long we've been taught these interesting parenting. I say interesting. Some of them are fucked up. Honestly, like some of the things that I dealt with when I was a kid, fucked up.
Yeah.
So it's like it's not easy to do what we're doing, especially with the ages that our kids are right now, where it's like I do want to resort to like my inner grandma and just whoop your ass with a wooden spoon, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have a conversation instead, and that's hard because
It
you're
is.
ignoring your base instinct.
I think a lot of people too, they're like, well, I'm not going to apologize to my kid because I'm not going to admit to them that I was wrong. And there's like,
I got a visceral reaction when you said that just now. Like that's come
but
on.
it's so true.
Oh, it's so. I mean, that's what my parents did to me. I never once got an apology because they're the parent and they're correct.
Yeah. And it's just not a good outlook. It's not a good way to look at things. And I mean, it's so hard. Like Jess said, all these parenting things are like so ingrained in us.
Mm-hmm.
And I, again, don't have a relationship with my mom, and there's a reason for that. I'm always so scared where there's sometimes where I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I'm like, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, how can I change that? What's that? But it's because like I don't even realize that I'm doing it. And I always had said when I was younger, like, I'm not going to be like my mom. I'm going to be better than her. My kids, they're going to want to be around me. They're going to want to hang out with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I see that sometimes where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is 100% like my mom, and I have to figure out how to change it because I'm just so scared. Like I said, my biggest fear is my kids not wanting to have a relationship with me when they're older.
Yeah.
They have to have a relationship with me right now, but when they are adults, they do not. And I think that that's an interesting thing to talk about too is I get so many different reactions to people when I
Ooh,
say that
yeah.
my mom's not, that I'm not, I don't have a relationship with her, especially because I have kids. Because I, from older generations, it's always, but that's your mom.
It's so ingrained where everybody's like, well, they're family. And it's like, no, we're gonna stop that right now. I am no contact with 2 out of the 3 of my parents, and I actually went no contact with my mom for like 3 years. And there have been times where I've considered, fuck it, 3 for 3. We'll just go no contact with any of them.
Yeah.
You don't owe them shit because they're your family. That's that. No.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's important to point out with that is it's not like I was this bratty 18-year-old who was upset about
Mm.
something stupid with my mom, decided to like not have a relationship with her. I tried for
Oh
years.
yeah.
It's only been 3.5 years that I haven't had a relationship with my mom. It was right after Baker was born.
Yeah, it wasn't like a teenage
It
thing.
wasn't like
Yeah.
Jesse had a relationship with her. And a lot of that relationship is what pushed a lot of the ways that she treated me as a mom is what pushed me over the edge to cut ties with her. I just don't, and I didn't want Jesse to see that
Mm.
growing up and think that it was okay because I don't want him to think that that's how a parent and child relationship
Yeah.
should look like.
As an adult.
As an
Yeah.
adult, yeah. She would say bad things about me to
Mhm.
Jesse, or she would tell him like, "Oh, well, your mom doesn't love me," and so then he'd come home upset and be like, "Well, why don't you love grandma?" And it just was all these
Oh
things,
yeah.
and it was hard at first to end that relationship, not for me, but for dealing with the aftermath of it with Jesse because he was close to her. That was somebody that he loved. He was only he was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And so like at 7, I had to like sugarcoat things a little bit more and couldn't be like as honest with him.
Yeah, it was a rough transition for him. I remember that.
But now he understands it. I think we've been able to have more conversations with it and why I had to make that choice. And so he is more understanding of it now, and he doesn't ask like the first year it was very much like, when am I going to go back to grandma's, and
Yeah.
when can I see grandma? And as he's gotten older, I've been able to talk to him a little bit more about it. So he's more understanding now, and he doesn't ask about it anymore, and he's sad for the way that that relationship was. but it just has to be done sometimes. Like I tried for years to have a relationship with my mom. I tried, she will say that I didn't because that's what narcissists do, right? But it was like it was something that I was put through so much emotional abuse
Oh yeah.
that you just reach a point. And so if a child has cut off a parent, so many adult children are looked down on for that, and so many adult children are guilted for that, and we have to stop that
Yeah.
because I won't put up with it. I straight up have told people like, well, I don't care if you don't agree with this, but like
Mhm.
you also don't know the entire situation.
Yeah, we're not doing this like, willy-nilly. Like we
Yeah.
are adults, and the one thing that I wish that people would understand is like I would love to have a relationship with my father. I would love to have a better relationship with my mom. It's not that I'm doing this because I'm being a fucking like I'm doing it for my own mental health. I'm doing it because I've set boundaries for myself and what I'm willing to accept for myself. I
Yeah.
don't need the toxic and the unnecessary drama. Like that's not healthy for me. It doesn't make me a better parent to my kids.
It's not
I
healthy for your kids.
It's not. And I think I wanted to point out when you said that you were telling Jesse about the situation with your mom, that's huge. My mom didn't tell me shit about what happened between her and my stepdad. And so when they got a divorce, I was blindsided. And again, there was like this very unhealthy, like, he was the favorite parent
Yeah.
because I could get away with a lot more with him. But I had no idea what was going on with their relationship. I had no idea why they got divorced. I had no idea the trauma that she went through. And so that was like part of the reason why I went no contact with her was because, well, how could you do this to me? How could you break apart my family again? And I actually went to my stepdad, and it, Nick was a part of this too, where it was like we would go over to his house and we would hang out, and my mom fucking hated me for it and thought I was betraying her. I had no idea what she went through until I had to experience my own trauma and my own pain with him. And I went through horrible situations with my stepfather until I had to make the decision for myself to go no contact. And so for me, you're protecting Jesse from that trauma by being transparent with him and communicating with him of this is what could happen if you continue to have a relationship with this
Yeah.
person. Whereas I didn't have to go through that trauma if my mom had just been open with me about this is what went down and this is why I left him. Please stay away for your own safety.
Yeah.
And I think that's just huge that yeah, he's 10, but he can understand. Like
Yeah.
he's old enough to get it.
And it's not something that like I even told him because I'm trying to avoid him going through the trauma.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want him obviously being told terrible things about me, which was starting to happen near the end
Yeah.
of my
Yeah.
relationship with her. Where I was coming from with it was very much I don't want him to hate me for taking this person out of
Oh,
his life.
well, and that's exactly what happened with my mom. Was
Right.
I went no contact because she didn't tell me.
Well, and like my mom did that to me too when I was younger. I was probably in third grade. I was around Carly's age. My mom took my sister out of my life.
Yeah.
And I didn't see my sister from the time I'm pretty sure I was in third grade. So I was 9
Mhm.
until I was like 14
Shit.
because my mom would not allow me to see my sister. And mind you, this is my mom's child
Yeah.
who my sister didn't have a relationship with because she was so toxic.
Mhm.
And she, my whole life, had primarily lived with her dad.
But that brings a point, like I didn't even think about that. That was another reason why I was so mad at my mom is that my stepfather had a son who was a little bit older than me, and we had gotten really close. And so when they got a divorce, it took him and my stepbrother completely out of my life. And it's, if anything, I was more upset about that. Like that is a whole ass sibling. That's another part of you and your identity and your personality that's just
Gone.
gone.
Yeah. And so it's like I didn't want Jesse to be mad at me for
Mhm.
taking his grandma out of his life,
Yeah.
especially because like sperm donor's family is not involved. His grandma is. We see her every now and again.
Mm-hmm.
We talk to her every now and again. I still look at her as though she's like kind of my mother-in-law because I do have a grandchild of hers,
Yeah.
but they're not like actively a part of his
Yeah.
life. And she's the only one in that family that we talk to. So at the time, because this was before, or this was like still early on in mine and Nick's relationship to where his family, we weren't like ingrained in his family yet. So at the time, that was like his only grandma. I had to talk to him about I had to tell him something. Again, I've given him more information the older that he's gotten, but at that time I just told him like, hey, like we're not going to see grandma for a while because she's not really being nice to mom right now.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy for you to be around somebody who's not going to be nice to mommy. And he accepted that answer. Like, I think sometimes parents, we think we have to over explain things to our kid. We're like, there's no middle ground, right?
Yeah.
Like, we either think we don't have to explain shit to our kids, or we need to over explain everything to our kids.
Every
you have to
minute
find
detail.
Yeah, so you have to find like that balance,
Middle ground.
especially depending on their age. Like, he was at an age where it's like I couldn't tell him the things that I could talk to him about now if he asked. He's been through a lot as a kid. Like,
he really has.
He's been through, his sperm donor abandoning him and then jumping into his life for 6 months barely, and then abandoning him again, and then his, my dad, his most consistent male role model, passing away. And he's been through he's been through a lot of stuff that it's like he's pretty emotionally mature for his age. He's obviously still a 10-year-old boy. He laughs if you say boobies, but like he's still pretty
I love that.
he's still pretty emotionally mature, right? So I can have we have some pretty in-depth conversations. And he doesn't really ask about her anymore. It's more so been about his sperm donor. And like, he's asked me recently why I left him, which was like a really hard thing.
That's been a common trend for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been because Carly has been asking a lot of questions around. So I don't know if it's just something with this age or what, but Carly's been asking a lot of questions about why Nick and I separated. And I've been answering her questions to the best of my ability without giving her, it's that same thing of like, I'm not going to give her all the details. But
yeah, I also don't want to say things with Jesse, and I know that you do it too, even though you and Nick have a good relate, like you guys are friends again now. But like with Jesse, even though his sperm donor is not in his life, I still try to word things without my feelings about him
like an
in it.
unbiased approach.
Right.
Right.
Because something that my mom did growing up was very much, she involved her feelings into everything when it came to my dad. And she told me too much at too young, where it was like I was upset at my dad and my stepmom for things that, like, now being an adult looking back, it's like how much of these things were actually true that my mom said, because she was a narcissist. She very much goes after attention. Like, there's a lot of things that are like what was true and what wasn't true.
Well, and not even that, but it was like, how much of it did you really need to stress about at your age?
Right. Yeah, so it's like my mom always was very much had her emotion behind how she talked about my dad. And that was really hard for me as a kid because I felt like I have to choose, or like I have to hate my dad so that my mom feels better. But like, really, I love my dad. Even though Jesse's sperm donor is not in his life, I still don't want to put my emotion behind it, because when he's older, he's gonna hate me for putting that emotion behind it.
Oh, right. And you want him to be able to develop like his own opinion and thoughts about the situation.
Right. And so I very much will like tell him facts, and he pushes me like, oh my God, I try to just give him like a general answer, and he's like, no, mom, what happened?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, here we go. But it was really hard. Like, he had a really hard reaction to some of the things that I told him, just because I don't think he realized how not good of a person this person is. And I think he told me that because he was bawling that night, and a lot of it was, I don't want to turn out like that.
Right.
And he's scared that because he shares blood with this person that he's going to turn out like that, and he doesn't want to. And so we had to have a conversation of like, hey, but that's not the role model you have in your life. You have me and you have dad, because he considers Nick his dad.
Oh yeah.
Nick is dad to him, and he calls his sperm donor by his name. He doesn't refer to him as his dad or anything. You know, I tried to explain to him like the positive role models he has, and reassure him that he's not going to end up like that, because he's a whole different person,
completely different.
So I think it's important to have these conversations with kids, again, to the like age appropriate,
right, to the extent that they could handle. Like, even Carly is 9, so she's only a year younger than Jessie, but she is at a different level in terms of emotional maturity, to where I can't have the same level of conversations with her. So sure, when she's older, I'll explain to her like a little bit more in depth of what happened between Nick and I. But it was great too, because she did this while Shelby was over.
Yeah.
Hey, I know he's moved on and has a new wife, but like, why did you and Dad break up? And it was, yeah, let me just answer this front of the stepmom.
Will and I were both here.
Yes.
So Will and I both are like, and she's like,
yes, we're literally standing around the kitchen, and Carly's just, like,
I was sitting right here.
Yeah, literally right there. Will's in the kitchen. So I have my new husband, I have my ex-husband's fiance here, and Carly fucking so nonchalantly, so why did you and Dad break up? Like, are we really gonna have this conversation right here in front of all these people?
It was so funny.
Yeah.
That also just shows like how comfortable though she is.
Oh, she's so comfortable
with Will and I.
And I don't think it was coming from a place of like malicious. Yeah. Why aren't you and Dad getting back together? That it was definitely,
that ship sailed a long time ago.
It did shit a long time ago. It sailed a long time ago. There we go. Because there was definitely a period of that right when Nick and I first split, but
even in the beginning of mine and Nick's relationship,
it was still there a little bit. But I think it's just a like general curiosity of like what happened. She's definitely hitting that age where she's more curious about like relationships and things like that. So I think it's more so just how do people love one another? How do people fall out of love with one another? Because she's asked questions about like my mom and like, where's my dad? And I was like, there's too much trauma in that for you right now.
She couldn't handle that. Yeah.
She could not handle that. My dad this is the only time that I've referred to him as my dad in a really long time. I usually just call him by his first name, but to respect his privacy on a podcast, I'm just this.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have that name.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that is true. That is true. And it's funny too, because my brother and I have completely different views on this, where my brother will call him Dad, which I don't even know why, because he's been out of my brother's life for significantly longer than he's been out of mine. I call him Mark. I refuse to call him Dad and refer to him as
That's a very common name.
It is a very common name.
A lot of people have that name.
Yeah, that is true. So in the presence of my mom and my brother, and I'll talk about Mark nonchalant, and my brother will get, shut up, Alexa. It's
time to go potty.
It's time to go potty. I have ADHD, I have time blindness, and so I have to have Alexa remind me when it's time to put my child on the toilet, because otherwise we will never potty train him. Anyways, my brother will get pissed when I call him Mark, because it's disrespectful and that's your dad. I'm like, fuck. He hasn't been around since
that's not a dad.
I was 6, and the shit that he did to me and the shit that he did to us, very, very light trauma dumping for you. He would lock me and my brother outside of his house in Portland, Oregon. And so we would have to walk to a grocery store to go to the bathroom, because we couldn't get back inside the house, because playing outside was good for our health.
And now you never go outside.
And now I never go outside. That's actually not true. But it's just
You do, but I feel like you're definitely more of an inside
I am
person.
a very inside, and wow, I think you just hit like a. I didn't even realize that. I am a very like inside
Therapist
cozy.
2.0 for Jess over here.
Yeah, the trauma of not being able to go back inside your house and being locked outside of it.
Because even when it's nice out, I feel like you prefer to be inside.
Oh yeah, I hate sweating. That's if it's hot outside, I will be inside.
But then we live in Washington, so it's always cold outside, and
Yeah,
you're like, yeah, it's too cold.
yeah. I need like a good 60,
And our asses, we're gonna move
65.
to Texas.
God, we were so fucking stupid for that. We went on a whole trip, like to scope it out and to see how much we loved it, and it was so hot. It wasn't even that
It wasn't
hot
though.
because our flight.
It was cold for the locals. Like they were in. It was like 65
Oh my
degrees.
God.
They were in coats.
We were in tank tops and booty shorts.
We walk into IHOP to have breakfast, and we're in shorts and a tank top. Like
people are
so
bundled
warm.
up with like
people are like
hoodies.
winter coats on, and we're like, oh, we stick out like a sore fucking thumb.
So bad because it was 65 degrees out,
and we were like, this is great.
And then our flight gets canceled for snow, and we thought we were gonna move there, and then their summers are like 100 to 110 degrees. I would have died. Yeah, I would have went outside to check the mail and have just deceased right on the street. Just not good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was probably. I mean, it was a fun trip though.
Yeah, it was.
The goats. I'm still mad that we never got to see the goats again. The first day that we showed up, there was like a field, hundreds of little goats. And that was it. Yeah. That's like the highlight of the trip for me. Apparently, was the goats.
Oh my gosh! See how easily it is for us to get sidetracked.
Yes, I don't even remember what we were talking about. Oh, the trauma of me being locked outside my house. Whoops. Yeah, so super great stuff. But those are the types of things. And my brother still is like very. It's that whole you have to respect your elders and your authority type thing. Yeah. And I just, I can't. I can't
either.
So
because even my
fuck
own
Mark.
Even that's all you need to take from this episode.
Yeah, pretty much. The TLDR.
But yeah, even like my grandparents, like my dad's parents, would be like, well, how's your mom doing? And I'd be like, I don't know. I don't talk to her. Well, that's your mom. And I'm like, yep, I'm not going down this road.
Absolutely not.
But it's like, yeah, and even to this day, I get like, my mom finds any way, shape, or form she can to like reach out to me and get a hold of me. And it's just unhealthy. Like it's gotten to the point where like she's offered me money to see my child, which is so creepy to me. Like I'm not pimping out my child, nor do you have any money to
money.
Yeah, I'm good. You can keep your $2.
Yeah, that's
But it's like the most recent one was she wrote a letter to Nick. And so he gets this
She does not know him very well.
No. And the only time they've been together was in the beginning of my and the next relationship. My grandpa was dying, which is her dad, who she had no contact with. And Nick drove us to Portland to go say goodbye to him. And on the car ride back, so it was like the middle of the night, I fell asleep because I don't do good in cars at night. Like I very much will go to sleep, which is why I cannot drive at night. She complained about me the entire time to Nick, and Nick like could not stand her.
This bitch.
Oh yeah, complained about me the whole time. Yeah, wrote him a letter, which don't know how she got our address. So that's cool because she's never been to like where we live.
Yeah.
We moved when I was pregnant with Baker and cut contact with her literally right after he was born. Yeah, wrote him a letter about how I'm this awful person. Oof. And how what we're doing to Jessie is awful, and how she'd love to like meet our other kids and all these things. And then literally was asking, it was like a 5-7 page front and back.
It was insane.
I still have it because it's just like,
I was privy to it too, so I was like,
yeah, literally was asking him pretty much to go behind my back,
like bribing him bribing
Yeah,
him
to go behind my back so that she could meet my other kids and see Jesse. And he just laughed and was like, your mom really thought that this was gonna work? She really thought I wasn't gonna show this to you?
right.
And like writes her address in it, writes her phone, and is like, please, I really want to hear back from you. Just like the whole letter is just talking shit about me and how I was a horrible daughter and how all these horrible things that I did to her.
Yeah, like that's what's going to improve your relationship. Not one single apology for any of the shit that she put you through, but here, let me talk shit about you some more in hopes that you'll feel guilty enough to come.
But it wasn't even to me, it was to Nick.
Right.
So, yeah, anyways.
That's crazy.
So that's the extent that like she still goes through to like try to, and I'm just like,
I'm literally waiting for her at some point because she has been able to find out some like crazy information about you, like where you live and shit like that. I want her one day to just show up on my doorstep and try to get to you through me. And I'm so ready.
Yeah.
Because I have no relationship with her. I do whatever I want.
Well, I don't have a relationship with her either. But
well, right. But
I'm trying to think. We've like spiraled, I feel like.
We really
and
have.
I'm so sorry because, but that's just like what you're going to deal with on this channel because
that's us.
That's us. And also, once we start talking, we just like feed off of each other, and then we go off on like.
I feel like that's what podcasts are supposed to be, though. It's just like
it makes me think of those, I don't know, like TikToks that I've seen where it's like you're trying to tell a story, but then that leads you into a different story, which leads you into another story, and this whole circle until you circle back to
the original
story.
Yeah,
that's how we talk. So
because we started talking about differences in parenting.
Yeah, but we don't really have any.
Yeah,
we also were going to talk about like how we grew up has.
Yeah,
and we have talked about that a lot.
Yeah, we have. So that's good. I'll say on the communication piece, just something that I've been taking Carly to therapy for, God, what, like over a year now? I feel like, in hopes to help improve. She, like I said, she has a lot of like self-confidence issues. She has a lot of impulse control. Mainly, I didn't want to treat her ADHD with medication. I wanted to try and seek the behavioral therapy route. But one thing that has improved a lot because of therapy is the communication piece. And so we have a journal that's just for Carly and I, and it helps kind of build that one-on-one relationship with Carly. A lot of her issues, she was a single child, an only single child. She was an only child for a solid amount of time where she was the only one that was getting attention, and then all of a sudden it was Jesse and Caden and Baker and Lincoln and Cora, and like she went from being an only child to having all of these siblings. And so that alone of trying to get her to shift her mindset and not be so like selfish and self-centered has been difficult. But the journal helps a lot. And so we actually wrote out like a series of rules on the front of the journal, and it's just for me and her. Like Will can't read it, Nick, Shelby, like nobody else can read it. And it's just an outlet for Carly to be able to write out her feelings and talk to me, and I can respond to her in a way where she's not always super comfortable talking to me because she's not as emotionally mature. And so this journal gives her the outlet to do that. And it's also improved her writing immensely. So, like, if you need a hack to improve your kids' handwriting because all they're doing now is typing, do this journal trick.
Yeah.
But it's improved her communication vastly because now she's reaching out to you more and talking to you more via Messenger, and she's able to talk about harder things without fear of getting in trouble or being judged or anything like that, to where she's actually using the journal less and less, and she'll actually just come to me and talk to me face to face about it.
Like with that too, because like I know that, again, I'm not allowed to look at the journal. I don't know what they talk about. I don't know what they write about. That's very private and personal to Jess and Carly. But I do know that like one of the rules, if I'm remembering correctly, because you guys have been doing this for a while now, is that like Carly can't get in trouble for what she writes in the journal.
Kids take this very seriously, so we made it like a very official thing. So we made a whole day of it. We went to Target and we found a journal that Carly loved.
Of course, it's pink.
Of course, it's pink and purple. It's like her favorite thing, and so we wrote on it, but we wrote rules on the inside. And so, the very first rule is no, I don't know answers.
Because she very much deflects and will be like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Especially if it's something she doesn't want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Her answer to everything for years was, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yep.
And so it was really hard to have conversations with her because her response to everything, and she did that her first while in therapy too. Everything her therapist would ask her was, I don't know. I don't know.
It took a long time to break through. And that was part of the reason why we started the journal was obviously you're uncomfortable with talking about your feelings. So let's write them out.
Yeah.
And so that's rule number 1. Yeah. Don't talk about the letters in person. This was a rule that Carly implemented. And that's the thing is Carly and I collaborated on these rules. So it was, I had to create some and then Carly had like her own ground rules. Like that was her boundary. She was like, if I'm going to talk about hard things, I don't want anybody else to know about the hard things. And so that's rule number 3 is like Shelby said, this is a safe space. You cannot get in trouble for anything written in this journal. Because
I mean, if you write that you murdered somebody, we might have to have a conversation about it. But...
Yeah. I kind of treat it like the same way that therapists do with their doctor-patient confidentiality. Like if you're threatening to injure yourself or others, we're breaking this contract.
Yeah.
So
she used to have a hard time talking about her emotions or talking about things because she had it in her head that she was going to get in trouble for literally everything. Well, if I feel this way, I'm going to get in trouble. If I feel this way, I'm going to get in trouble. If I say this, like if I'm challenging mom, I'm going to get in trouble. So like everything to her led to I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah, we need to tell the truth. So like we can't lie in the journal either. Only her and I can read the letters and we cannot share with others except for her therapist. So that was something that we worked on too, because it's like if she was talking about something in here, she could also share it with her therapist, because we explained that doctor-patient confidentiality. That was part of the reason why she had such a hard time talking to her therapist, is because she could not get it through her head
that she wasn't going to run and tell.
Yeah, I almost said her name. That her therapist would tell us everything, or that Carly literally thought that if she told her therapist something, the therapist would like go and tell her family and friends and just like spread it throughout the community. And it's like, dude, you're 9. Why are you worrying about your image to the community? Like, what is happening? Me and Nick splitting up like really messed with her ability to like communicate effectively. A lot of it came from wanting to try and be the perfect child because she didn't want either of us parents to leave. And so we've had to do a lot of serious work to get her to not have that mentality. And that's what hurt a lot of her self-confidence too, is I feel like most kids do, but she blamed us splitting on her. And it's like, well, honestly, kiddo, you had nothing to do with it. But is trying to teach that to a 4 or 5-year-old.
Yeah,
is hard. But yeah, so the journal idea works pretty well. So that's my spiel.
I don't do a journal, but
yeah, I feel like you and Jesse have a much better relationship though in terms of communicating. Like he's able to go to you for hard things and to be able to talk. And it's like I really admire your guys' relationship for that, because I'd love Carly to be able to just come to me and tell me those kind of things and not have to do it in a roundabout way with the journal. I'm glad that the journal is working, but it's like,
and I think a lot of that is just because like it was just Jesse and I for so long. Like it was only me and him up until he was 6 when Nick and I got together. primarily it was
Yeah.
just him and I. And so, and we didn't have a lot of money. I couldn't afford, for the longest time, we didn't have a TV, we didn't have anything
Yeah.
where we lived. So it was like we did a lot of playing together, or like we did talk a lot together, even from when he was a young age. Like we would talk about how he was feeling. We read a lot of books together. Like we just did a lot of things, just him and I, which is so hard for me to think back on. And I think he's kind of been thinking the same thing too, where it's like, obviously, I don't regret having other kids. Like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
love all of my kids. Can't and now imagine my life without Baker, Lincoln, Cora, and Parker and Carly. Sometimes I just miss the times when it was just
Oh,
me
yeah.
and Jesse. Like, we were so close. And because we have this, gang of kids now, I don't get that time with him like I used to. And I
Mm.
try to find the like hardest thing is I get so spent because Baker's a toddler. He's also very obviously ADHD, but there's nothing that they will do for a
Yeah.
child that age. And this isn't just me being like,
No,
he,
this is,
it's very obvious that he
yeah.
has ADHD. It's stuff that I've researched. Like I have when Carly got diagnosed with ADHD, I bought ADHD parenting books because I wanted to be a better parent for her.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them has signs of ADHD within different age range, and he's hit all of them since he was 1.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
it's pretty extreme. It's pretty extreme. Like I thought Carly was overwhelming at first. He's very overwhelming, and it makes it hard to like want to hang out with people with him sometimes because I
Mm-hmm.
worry about like how am I going to be viewed as a mother? Like
It is hard, but ADHD presents so differently in girls versus boys, where it's the Baker definitely has very like stereotypical excessive hyperability of
yeah.
ADHD.
So it's like I love all of them. I'm glad that I have them. I can't imagine my life without them, but I'm so spent by the end of the day that I don't always have a lot of energy for Jesse. And I always feel so guilty about that. But it's like I'm a stay at home mom right now. I'm with, I have 4 kids that are 3 and under. 3 of them are 1 and under. Like Cora and Parker were born the day that Lincoln turned 9 months old. They're 9 months apart. The girls are now 4 months old. Lincoln is 13 months old. Baker is a little over 3. And the Irish triplets are actually pretty easy to deal with. Baker is a lot. He takes so much of
Oh
my
yeah.
energy. There are days where like I've called or messaged Jess and I'm like, I'm in tears because of how exhausted I am, and it's only 9 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel bad because Jesse doesn't get as much of me, but I still try to find ways to spend that time with him. And one of those ways is sitting down, talking to him, having a conversation with him,
Mm-hmm.
seeing how he's feeling. We help our neighbors a lot with their dogs. And so one of them always works out of town, and then the other one works weird hours.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they'll text us and be like, hey, can you go let the dogs out and feed them and let them out for a little bit? And Jesse and I will go and do that together. When we do that, he'll take the dogs outside, and then he'll bring them back upstairs and we'll play with them. And while we're playing with them and feeding them or whatever, him and I will talk. And like we've had some really big conversations there where he's told me things that he's feeling, and we've tried to like work out different ways he can cope with it or like how to address it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of my biggest things is I always
You're
want
trying to find like moments where you can get that one-on-one time with him.
right, and I want him to know that he can talk to me because my biggest fear is him being a teenager and hiding things from me.
Yeah, I hid so much from
Well, I
mom.
hid so much from my parents, and I also like I snuck around a lot behind their backs because well, my dad didn't like me going hanging out with friends. That was like one of the things
Same.
from like my childhood where
Mm-hmm.
if I hung out with somebody one weekend and then asked to hang out with somebody the next weekend, my dad was like, no, you just went to a friend's house last weekend. You don't need to go to a friend's house this weekend. Even though all I was doing that weekend was sitting in my bedroom because my stepmom and I hated each other. So,
Yeah.
and my dad was gone because he was always out at a bar. I wasn't allowed to do things. Whereas, like, that's something that I've tried to change with Jesse is like, he has to go to a friend's house as long as the other parent says it's okay. Yeah. What else are you going to do? Sit at my house and
Yeah.
be annoyed by your little siblings. Like, go have fun with your friends.
Yeah, go be social and socialize and do that kind of stuff.
And the thing is, the friends that he's going and hanging out with, I know them. I know their
Mm-hmm.
parents. They're good people. The kids are good kids. You know, there have been situations that we've had to talk about lately where he's not being influenced the best by certain friends, where I've been like, okay, you know, if your behavior is going to be like this when you come home, we're going to start not letting you go to that friend's house because you know better than to treat us like this. So it is something where I'm not letting him go hang out with these hoodlums. But that was something that I really struggled with as a kid. Was I was very social and wanted to hang out with my friends a lot, and I wasn't allowed to. And so that has changed how I parent, where yeah, go hang out with your friends as long as I know where you are. Like, you know, the parents are always communicating with me, which is great. Like I said, I know my all of my his friends' parents. And if I am noticing poor behavior, we have a conversation about it. And if he still is having poor behavior from that friend's house, then he might get cut off from going and hanging out with that friend, because you gotta, you know, if you're
Yeah.
not gonna choose friends that are gonna be a good influence, I'm gonna help redirect you. I'm not gonna tell him who he can and can't be friends with. Obviously, he's gonna hang out with whoever he wants at school. I'm not there. But when it comes to extra time with people, I can at
Mm-hmm.
least play a part. And I know
And
that the kids that he's hanging out with are good kids. And
it makes me laugh that my mom, she wouldn't let me do any of that kind of stuff. And there was like this movie that we were watching as an adult. I'm sitting on the couch, and it was a very stereotypical house party with like red solo cups and stuff. And I had made a comment where I was like, "Oh, they're not like that. Like the house parties are not like that." And my mom was like, "Oh, well, you've just never been invited to one." And it made me realize how much. Oh no, I've been invited. You just didn't know because I was real good at
yeah,
not telling you these things. And it's that terrifies me if I was able to go to these parties as a teenager and do that without my mom realizing. I don't want Carly to have that kind of relationship where she feels like she has to hide that shit from me, because it's for me, I want you to be safe. I know that the parties are going to happen.
yeah,
I know that you're going to go to those parties. I would rather be able to be on the other side of that, where I can make sure that you're being safe and smart and making good choices and trust me enough to talk to me. Because at the end of the day, if something were to happen, I want her to have somebody to call.
yeah.
I want her to
Well,
be able to call me and say, "Hey, can you come get me?" Whereas I was in situations where I would just be walking home at
2 in the morning.
2 o'clock in the morning by myself, trying to sneak back into the house, and that was not safe.
No.
There are so many things that I did that I was,
Well, and I told you, Jesse and I had this conversation
yeah,
recently where I don't even remember like what segued into it, but somehow we started talking about things, and he brought up alcohol and doing drugs. And
yeah. I
um,
can't remember what even started that
I don't
conversation.
remember at this point anymore, but it got brought up, and I was like, "You're going to try these things.
Oh yeah,
I'm not going to hide that from you. I
yeah,
know that one day, not today because you're 10,
yeah,
but one day you're going to want to smoke pot, or there's so many different variations of marijuana now, but like you're going to want to try it and experiment. One day you're going to want to drink, and I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite and get mad at you for it. Like, I was 13 the first time I smoked weed. I was 14 the first time I got drunk. A lot of my junior and senior year in high school was me drinking. So I'm not going to sit here and be a hypocrite and
tell you that you can't
tell
do
him that he
that.
can't do something when I did it. And it's inevitable. I know he's going to do it. I'm not an idiot. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
My boundaries within that, though, were you have to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'd prefer you be open and talk to me about it. Like, hey, mom, I'm thinking of doing this, because I want you to know the safe way to do things. I want you to know certain limits. And, you know, my big thing that I told him was, you do not get into a car with
Oh,
anybody who's been drinking or smoking. You do not drive if you've been drinking or smoking. If you ever find yourself in that situation, you call me. no, like, don't care what time it is, no questions asked. I will come pick you up. You're not going to be in trouble. I will drive your friends' homes because, like, I'm not going to let anything bad happen to your friend. I'm the very much type of parent where his friends, I look at them as like my kids. Like, I
Yeah.
love his friends, his basketball team. He's not even close to everyone on his basketball team, but I'm very much the like, I'm cheering for literally every single kid on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Even I've learned kids' names on the team
like,
too.
what's that one's name again?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, I'm not gonna leave your friends. Like, if you and your friends need a if your friends need a ride home, you can call me. I will come get you guys. But I do not want you guys driving, getting in the car with somebody who's driving. That, like, I'd way rather get woken up at 2 a.m. and have to get up out of bed and come get you than be woken up at 2 a.m. to a phone call or a
Ugh,
police officer at my
yeah.
door telling me that you're dead or you're hospital, like,
Something.
something.
Yeah.
His response, because, like, I will say, like, a big opportunity, and Nick and I both know this, a big opportunity in mine and Nick's relationship is communication. But that's hard because he's not like a great communicator.
Yeah, no, he's not. He's not.
Him and Jesse had already talked about this, and his response was, "Well, Dad said he was going to kick my ass if that ever happened," and I had to tell him, like, okay, well, I'll talk to Dad because that's not going to happen. I do not want my kids to be scared of me or scared of calling me if they end up in that situation. And she was the same way, because it's like, that's how you lose. That's a really good way to lose your kids.
Yeah.
Or have something terrible, even if they survive, have something terrible happen to them.
Because you're still going to do it. Because my mom was the same way. And you know what I did? Instead of telling her and being transparent with her, I snuck out my window.
I got in cars with people I shouldn't have. Like, it's just, it's bad news.
I put myself in very, very dangerous situations.
So I talked to Nick about it. He's on the same page now. But
he's a very stereotypical, like, dad.
But he also was coming from the sense of, like, this is how it was for me.
Yes.
And
he's still catching up on the breaking generational parenting cycle.
So it's like, I don't want our kids to be scared of talking to us. So, like, I'm really glad that Jess and Carly do have this journal, and that Carly is learning how to open up and talk about her feelings and how she's feeling, because I want this to be something for her that she's going to get more and more comfortable, to the point that when she is a teenager and experimenting, she does have, she knows she has that safe place, safe person. And I hope that she knows when she's that age that I'm a safe person for her too. But she's definitely more like, the person she's most bonded with all the parents is Jess. Like, that is her safe person. And that's fine. That's great. I just hope that she also knows that, like, I'd be a safe person for her too. Like, I'm not going to pick them up and yell at them. They need to feel comfortable and safe calling us in those situations, because we know they're going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not like
100%. I mean, just thinking through the things that we had access to as kids, and this is why I'm so big on teaching Carly about internet safety too, because
Jesse's out here teaching her about internet safety.
Oh yeah, like, he's such a, like, big brother energy. It's so funny. But it's not only did I put myself in dangerous situations at parties and going out and doing things
online too.
Online, holy shit. I think back to some of the ASL was such a huge thing.
All the different chat rooms.
All the AOL, and I would lie and say that I was 18 when I wasn't. I was like 14 or 15, and you had all of these Neopets and Toontown and RuneScape, and I'm just trying to think of, like, all of these online games where you could interact with other strangers on the internet. Oh my god. It's appalling.
Yeah.
But it was so new back then. Like, parents didn't know. Technology was just such a new thing. And so now I'm very, very adamant about teaching Carly about online safety. Do not interact with strangers on the internet. So right now I'm slowly introducing this. We found a new game that Will and I are, like, religiously playing. It's called Palia. But it is a social online, like, MMO. So there is a chat room and stuff like that. And so this is Carly's first breach into the online world. I refuse to let her do Roblox or Minecraft because I Roblox, as a 30-year-old, I have watched other 30-year-old streamers play Roblox, and the chat rooms are atrocious. So I just don't let Carly play
Yeah.
Roblox. And it's like I can't monitor it as well as this one. This one, the game's on the Switch, and we're setting very clear rules that like she cannot engage in the chat. She does not accept friend requests from other people, and she can only play it when we're around, so that way we can like kind of
Able to monitor her.
able to monitor it. We also don't give her access to YouTube, just because I've seen predators who will take cartoons and it will look like a very child friendly video, but then they turn it into stuff that has very mature content in it.
Yeah.
It's not good. So she doesn't have access to YouTube unless we have YouTube on the TV. And so if she wants to watch a specific channel, we'll set it up for her so that we can also monitor
it. Yeah.
what's being, because she loves doing like follow along, like drawing YouTube videos and stuff like that. So I'm fine with those. But yeah, so she just started this new game. And so I'm teaching her about this is how you friend people, because now she's friends with me and William. And so she knows how to do like the party invites and stuff, so that if something comes from another person, she knows how to reject it or ignore it. And I've turned off the chat and stuff so she can't engage. But it's like I want her to be knowledgeable about it so she knows not to make the stupid ass decisions that we did when we were teenagers. Oh man, I cringe at some of the shit that I did on the internet. Oh, it's so bad. So bad. What was it? Chat roulette? Did you
Oh.
Whoo boy. Omegle. Did you
I
ever
never
do
did that. I think chat roulette though, like my cousins and I one year for Christmas, not this wasn't like our Christmas activity, but like we were all together for Christmas and I think we were on it and I was holding my cousins, I'm just gonna say stepdad, they're like my aunt and him are not married, but they've been together now forever. My cousin's stepdad, his daughter had just had triplets.
Oh dang.
Yeah, so she had triplet girls. And they were not a year yet, but they were old enough to be like, they were probably like 8 months old.
Yeah.
Between 6 and 8 months old. Well, I was holding one of them, and my cousin had like put on this chat, and this person was like, "Oh my god, she has a baby," and like clicked next. I had a baby in my lap. So funny. So yeah, I very, very much remember chat roulette.
Yeah, that was, oh my god, the things that you could do on the internet was, yeah. So I have like all
we have a
the
lot
things.
more access now though
We
to
do.
safety, like safety nets when it comes to online for our kids.
Like Xfinity. I have Comcast. Everybody has fucking Comcast around here because it's a monopoly in our area, but like they actually surprisingly have really good parental things that you can set up. I can put on like time limits for how much she can be on the internet. I can block specific sites so she can't access them from her tablet or whatever. So Xfinity has a really good option. And we also have a kids watch for her so she can stay in contact. I really like the kids watches that they have now because you can set up specific contacts where she can only contact who is built into the watch. She can't just like call anybody.
Which is like when I was a kid, I was always on my home phone, like
at
sleepovers, like with the yellow book,
just calling
people,
anybody,
and then I'd get so scared, just hang up.
And that's exactly, it's like my daughter is a very social person, so I could 100% see her doing that. But so this way, she can only contact who's put into her watch.
Yeah.
But then it also, like, there's boundaries, so it'll let me know if she's at the school or at home or at her dad's house. The kind of stuff that if we had that when we were kids, we wouldn't have gotten away with shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's technology has gotten real far.
Yeah, thankfully.
Yeah.
It's like good and bad.
It is good and bad. And it's hard because we're now having to navigate how do you respect their privacy and how do you respect their boundaries, but also making sure that they're maintaining like good, safe habits. Yeah, it's fine line.
Yeah.
We're wrecked as soon as they get phones.
Yeah, I know.
Ugh.
Depending on the phone, because like Jesse, I gave him my old iPad for Christmas this year, and that has a lot of parental controls that I can do on it.
Yeah, I'll definitely be going for iPhone over
So-
Android because of that.
So when he does get his first phone, because he's going to middle school next year, he does every sport under the sun.
He's
like
a very social kid.
He's a very, very social kid. He's my most draining kid when it comes to like having to chauffeur him around, because I'm constantly
You
like,
are Jesse's taxi
today,
service.
Yeah, like today starts his third after school club. So like Mondays he has choir, Tuesdays, starting today, he has chess club, and then Thursdays he has math Olympiad. But then Tuesdays and Thursdays he also has basketball practice. Fridays or Saturdays he has gate. So it's something. And basketball season is over after this week.
Yeah.
But then starts baseball and soccer, which will be fun because it's going to be literally an everyday thing. But it's hard to.
Is he doing both? Is he doing baseball
I have
and
such a hard time saying. Okay, so here's the thing. I do not think that I'm a pushover with my kids. I do. Nick might say differently when it comes to like the littles, but which maybe I am a little bit with them, but I'm not a pushover with my kids in the sense of they want something, they get it.
Oh yeah.
I very much am like, well, ask for it for your birthday, ask for it for Christmas, no matter what time of year it is. Put it on a list. We'll take a picture of you with it so that we can remember that you wanted this thing.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit of a pushover when it comes to things like books, because books are great to have. And I have no self-control when it comes to books. In case you didn't know this, the first thing that Jess and I bonded over outside of Carly was reading and was books.
Yes.
We are very big readers. So it's like, that's a habit I want to support. Books is good and healthy for your mind. So yeah, I am a little bit of a pushover when they say they want a book. I might go get it for them, especially because books for them are like $8.
So cheap.
So cheap. But when it comes to items or things that they want, I'm not. But also when it comes to activities that is, I know, is keeping them out of trouble. Yeah. And I want them to continue on that path into high school when things are harder to keep them out of, or like there's more peer pressure and more like negative influence, things like that. So I want to help instill that in him, that it's really hard for me to say no to him doing sports or extracurricular activities. So
because they're so good for him in so many different ways.
And he's very athletic, he's very active.
Yeah.
And it's a good outlet for him too, I think.
I couldn't even imagine what he would be like if he didn't do.
He would sit in his room and play video games all day.
Yeah.
Because that's all he ever wants. He's 10, he's a preteen.
Yeah.
He just wants to play video games all the time. That's another reason why it's like, I'm glad that he's so into sports. So baseball and soccer are at the same time.
Yeah.
We navigated it last year because I coached his soccer team, and one of the kids' parents on his team is like begging me to coach again because he wants me to coach again. And I'm just going to say, I'm not a different coach than how I parent. Like, I coach the same way I parent. I make kids run. I was very nervous about it at first because I was like, these parents are going to hate me. And the parents were like, yeah, make them run. And I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I did, I think, scare one parent for how I talked to Jesse. It was like the last game, and I was yelled at him for something, and I was like, if you want to keep talking back to me, you're not going back in the game. And the parents' eyes got wide and like backed away from me. So it's like, I'm very much the same. But so I was able to do practices separate of when baseball practices were, and we navigated games.
Yeah.
It was a very, very busy, chaotic schedule. But at the same time, it's the way that I justify it is, if Carly did sports, I'd be doing the same amount of running around.
100%. Because you'd have two kids doing sports. So you're lucky that Carly is not into that shit at all.
Whereas like Carly has 4 parents that can help with running her around, but because I'm the like stay at home one, I do a lot of it. yeah, so it's like that's how I guess justify.
That's how
him.
you. It's the girl math.
Yeah,
that's how you
exactly,
make
it's
it
the girl
work.
math.
Yeah, the girl math. No, it makes total sense, and especially it's odd because Carly is. I think Carly's still just trying to find what works for her. She's really into art club. She loved art club. She loves choir. She's not doing chess this year. She just isn't enjoying it as much as we we thought she loved it, but
She always said that she loved
yeah,
it.
well, she was very adamant this year that she did not want to do it, so she did not do chess.
And I think that's important to point out too, that we don't force our kids to do things that they don't want to do. See, a lot of kids end up hating things that at one time they were passionate about because it gets to a point where their parents are like forcing them.
Yeah, you've put X amount of time into this already, so keep going for it. And it's like, I'm not going to make Carly do that. Like, she's a kid. I will never understand this whole idea of like, you have to be able to pick your identity before you're an adult.
Now, if we sign them up for something, they're expected to finish it out.
Yes. We did cheerleading one year and she fucking hated it, but I'd already paid for the season.
She liked practices. She hated performing. Games.
Yeah, she did not like performing. So she had to finish out the season, but that was it.
She doesn't have to do it again.
Yeah.
So, and it's like the same thing. Like Jesse did this program. It's called TAG in our school district. It's for talented and gifted. He had to test into it last year. He met the score needed to get into it.
Yeah.
But he wasn't enjoying it. He wasn't getting anything out of it. And I think he like didn't know how to approach the conversation with me. Yeah. So he started skipping it. And it's this thing where he like, it's one day a week at a different school. So he'd ride the bus from our house to his school, and then he'd catch a different bus to go to the other school just this one day a week. Well, he started not going on that bus and just going to class and skipping it. And I had no idea until like the third time he'd done it when his teacher finally reached out to me and said something. And so him and I had a conversation about it, and he was like, well, yeah, I'm not enjoying it. The teacher is pretty hostile. I'm not learning anything. And like, it's not beneficial. I'd rather just be in my normal class. Easy as that. This was one situation where I didn't make him finish it out because A, it's obviously super easy for him to skip it and not go and me not even know. Yeah. But B, this was a situation where he wasn't comfortable around the teacher. She was hostile in the classroom, according to him. And from what I had heard from a couple of the other kids, I knew some, and it wasn't helping him academically like it was supposed to.
Yeah, there was no benefit for him.
All he did was art. Yeah. And like, he's not the only one to say that. I know other kids and talked to like some of their parents, and they said the same thing. So this was like the one exception to that rule of like, you don't have to finish it out. But
and it's one thing to be able to like have a creative outlet and to do art, and that is super beneficial in its own way. But he was skipping a day of school to go do this program, and so he was having to work harder to maintain his grades and make sure he was staying up to date on his schoolwork
projects at school,
so that he could do art at another school. And it's like, yeah, for me, if I was a kid, fuck that. Why would I make my education so much more difficult to do art that I could do at home?
Like, he was interested in doing it because it was supposed to be something like, he thought it was going to be challenging because he does get bored there are certain things where he does get bored at school, which is probably what stems some behavior issues he has, because I honestly just think that he's bored.
100%. He's not getting challenged whatsoever.
And so that's what we thought this class would be for him, and it was not that at all. Like, he literally had a day where half the day he said that they colored with like kindergartners. The whole point of that was, again, we're going off in tangent. The whole point of that was that like, we like, one thing that we do as parents is we do not force our kids to do things that they don't enjoy, because like, what's the point? You're wasting your money in some situations.
Yeah.
You're hurting your relationship with your kid. Your kid is not enjoying doing this thing. Jesse has a kid in his class who's forced to do one of the after school programs, and he like cry, and like Jesse always feels so bad for him because this kid does not want to do this after school club, but his parents are forcing him to. And I just do not understand the point to it.
No, I mean, if anything, it's just have them try different things. Like they're still developing their personality, they're still developing what
Their
they like,
interests.
and all you're gonna do by having them go through and try all of these different things, you're just gonna have a well-rounded kid.
Yeah.
Like Carly's tried everything. She's not good at a lot of the sports aspects, but she's tried them.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually she'll find I guarantee she's going to be a theater kid. I feel like
Oh yeah.
like 100%. But until she finds that within herself, like I'm just going to let her do her own thing. I couldn't imagine forcing her to do something to the point where she's going to resent me for it. I don't want to put her through that.
And the thing is, like, we also give them the option.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jesse's been doing Jesse and Carly did chess together for this would be like the 3rd year.
Yeah.
And it's not something where it's just like, well, they've been doing it for this long, I'm just gonna sign them up without talking to them about it.
I talked to Carly about every club before.
Right, and I talked to Jesse like, hey, are you wanting to do chess again? Yep. Okay, cool. I'll sign you up.
Mm-hmm.
And in Carly, Jesse knows all the different things. He just, like I said, he would do every sport under the sun if he could. He's bowled. Yeah. He's done golf. He now wants to do rugby, and I'm like, oh my god,
I don't know if I trust little Jesse to do some rugby.
I do. He's pretty scrappy. He also did jiu-jitsu for 3 or 4 years.
That is true. That is
true. I think he'd be okay. When it comes to Carly, who's not interested in all of the things, we still at least like provide her with the information. Yeah. Like, hey, this is available. Mm-hmm. And if it's something that she doesn't understand what it is, then we'll explain it to her. Like, this is what you do in it. Yeah. This is what this activity would look like. So we still give her the option, even if we're like, oh, I don't think that she'd like it. Maybe she will, and we'll still present it to her as an option. Or even if we're like, oh, I think that she's going to love this, maybe she won't. So we can't just go sign her up for things. Mm-mm.
Like we always give them the choice. Like we give them some.
They're the ones doing it.
Yeah, they're exactly. They're the ones that have to go and put forth the effort and do the things. Like we give them autonomy by giving them the option of, do you want to sign up for I'm footing the bill for it, but that's why we at least ask that you finish it out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are like the biggest parenting things, at least that I can think of. We've gone off on a lot of tangents.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I'm just going to be honest. That's just what you're going to get.
That's just kind of the
you MO. Get what you get, you don't throw a fit. So
yeah,
we appreciate, as always, you watching, and make sure to like and subscribe. We have all the things set up now. We've got our Facebook, we've got our Instagram, we've got our TikTok, we have our email. You can email us at. Everything is linked in our description, right?
Yep.
We have our link tree with links to all the things. So make sure to follow along. We just had some pretty fun pictures done last week. So
yes, I'm so excited.
Make sure that you are following along so you can see the fun pictures that we had done. Of course, that was last week's episode where you got to kind of be behind the scenes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you missed it, go check it out. It's a short and sweet episode, but it's pretty funny.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, and have a great week.
Yeah, until next time.
Bye.
Bye.